Hi, I'm Sharon Cosina. I'm a family therapist in the Boulder area and have been in practice for over 20 years. Everybody knows about talk therapy. Of course, I've been doing talk therapy all of that time. But for the last 11 or so years, I've incorporated EMDR and brain spotting into my therapy and have seen the wonderful results. Today, I want to talk about the things that brain spotting can help. And really, I've seen them help so much. Trauma, PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, sleep issues, depression, complicated grief. If you're stuck and you just feel stuck. I've also seen it help people with some of their physical issues. So when people come to me and they ask me about how to work with any of these issues, and we start talking about brain spotting, this is what I tell them. So this is a brain. This is Dan Siegel's version of the brain. Dan Siegel is a psychiatrist at Stanford, and he's come up with this very simple model of the brain that I think explains it so well. So here, this is the deep brain. This is the part of the brain that's connected to the body. And down in here is the amygdala. You may have heard that called the reptilian brain. That's the fight or flight center. That's our survival area. This part right here is the emotional part of the brain, and this part here is the thinking part of the brain. And then when this is all joined together, the very front, which actually is right here behind our foreheads, is the prefrontal cortex. That's our executive function, so organizing and judgment and things like that. So what happens with trauma? Trauma gets stored as a capsule. It's called a trauma capsule, and it gets stored down here. Talk therapy hits the top part, which is called the neocortex, and it can help with the limbic system too, that emotional part, but it doesn't get down here where that trauma capsule is. Brain spotting works through all three of these layers and helps us access that trauma capsule, open it, let your brain reprocess it, and let go of that. Yeah. You won't lose the memory of whatever it is that caused your issues, but you'll work through the emotional buildup around it so that you won't have that as a trigger or a button. So when I talk to people about brain spotting, they often ask what they can expect. Really, the techniques I use are based on what you need. So different pieces that we can incorporate into the brain spotting. There's always eye position. So the eye position actually gives access into that trauma capsule that I was mentioning before. A lot of times we'll add in something called bilateral stimulation, which is, I've got CDs that if you're listening to them, they sound like they're going from one ear to the other. They're music and nature sounds. And what we've learned from EMDR is that when you alternate hemispheres of the brain reprocesses. So if you've ever gone for a walk and you were disturbed about something and you felt better after, that may have been the bilateral piece, because when you move your left leg, you're triggering your right hemisphere of your brain. When you move your right leg, you're triggering the left hemisphere of the brain. And when you go back and forth, it goes back and forth in the hemispheres, which then prompts your brain to reprocess things. People often want to know how many sessions is this going to take, how long are the sessions? And it's a great question, but it's a really hard one to answer because every person is different. And even every issue is different. Some things may process through very quickly, and some things may be connected to other issues. There's a saying that says things that fire together wire together. So it may not seem like things are connected when you're processing, but all of a sudden your mind goes to something else. And brain spotting is very much based on your mind and body know what it needs to do to heal. And so when people ask, am I doing this right? The answer is always yes. We both trust your process. So as far as the processing that I've been mentioning, it doesn't end just because the session ends. It's not time-bound. It doesn't look at its watch and go, oh, okay, we're done. It actually often goes on for could be a couple of hours after the session's over. It might be a couple of days. It might be a few weeks. And what I've noticed from my own brain spotting is that it just kind of runs in the background. It doesn't interfere. I'm not tired all the time. But if I tune into myself, I might notice that, it feels like something's going on. And then at some point, I'll notice that, that thing's not happening anymore. I guess that must be done. Brain spotting reprocesses things without re-traumatizing. Brain spotting does not have any side effects like drugs do, and you don't need to talk about what you're noticing. I believe that talking about traumas, unless somebody needs to make meaning of them, is re-traumatizing. And brain spotting allows you to access that trauma capsule and reprocess without having to talk about it. One thing that people often do notice is that they get tired from processing. And when we schedule the appointment, I just ask you to schedule some downtime afterward in case you're tired. I am so passionate about brain spotting because I've just seen such great results with clients. I believe in it so much that I consult with and supervise other therapists. So if you're in the Boulder area and want to talk to me, call me. The contact information is right down there. And I would love to talk to you about the ways that I can help you have the life you want and go from surviving to thriving.